Welcome to the Peacebuilding Practitioner, a resource page and podcast for people working on conflict, on peacebuilding and on social justice issues. My name is Björn Eser and I'm the founder of and shaker and maker behind the Peacebuilding Practitioner. And today you are listening to the 5th episode of Season 2 of the Peacebuilding Practitioners podcast. Today's episode zooms in on some of the basics, the role of the media and how it affects decision-making processes in the newsroom. So lean back, grab a cup of coffee and enjoy yet another episode of conflict-sensitive journalism with Antonia Koop. Let's get started.
Hello fellows, I hope you're all safe and well. The COVID-19 pandemic surely gives us a lot to think about, with regards to the world in general, but also to journalism specifically. A lot has changed in a very short time. How our days look, how we connect and relate to the people around us, and what we expect to receive from the news media. In this pandemic, I discovered to my surprise that mainstream journalism has suddenly gone pretty conflict sensitive. In this acute crisis, journalism has changed. A lot of media outlets have realized that the normal style of reporting is unhelpful and wildly inappropriate for the current situation. Newsrooms silently dropped some persistent bad habits and adapted key features of conflict-sensitive journalism. Many would probably not call it that, but the fact remains. In a crisis like this, the high-quality journalism we advocate for in CSJ is highly valued. It is becoming apparent that the usual pattern of sensational, blame-oriented and oversimplified reporting we often see in normal times doesn't work in this situation and is also not appreciated by our audiences. Aside from a few narrow-minded political figures, most people have by now realized that the virus is not an enemy to rage against or an external evil we could fend off with weapons and walls. It is a shared challenge we need to deal with collaboratively. In this situation, we don't need and want a journalism that inflames and tells us who to rage against. The trolls and agitators that have dominated the online discourse have gone increasingly silent over the past weeks. At a time like this, we want credible, useful information that enables us to make informed choices. We want to understand what is happening so we don't feel so helpless and vulnerable. We need a channel through which we can raise our concerns for ourselves or for others we care for. At times like this, journalists are needed to tell us about the heroes in this crisis. People like us who have been surprised by the sudden developments and who suddenly find themselves at the center of this unexpected battle. They make us feel braver because they are people like us. We also need our journalists to tell us about the victims, so we remember that those who die are not numbers but people, that weighing the risks to people's lives against economic damage is not a numbers game. We need responsible high-quality reporting to inform us about what measures work and which don't, where to go when in need and how to avoid the biggest risks to get infected, how to take care of ourselves and others, in short, how to help and how to make it through this challenging time. Think about it. In a situation like this, having access to good and credible information is the very thing that keeps us from freaking out. As in any conflict or war, we as journalists take risks to be able to gather information and deliver the news to our readers. As a war journalist, I have often been looked at with suspicion. You must be an adrenaline junkie. Oh, you like the risk. You have a death wish or what? In a pandemic, those derogative voices are suddenly silent. I think most people understand that there's nothing thrilling about catching a potentially deadly disease because you're out there when most people are staying at home to be out of harm's way. I hope that this crisis reminds us all how important the work of journalists truly is. I hope it makes us all value not just good journalism, but also the journalists who take risks every day to keep us informed. Now, having said all that, I do want to talk about what has really changed in today's pandemic-centered news coverage and what has led to this fundamental shift. I believe this change has a lot to do with conflict-sensitive journalism principle number 4, the goal of journalism. Because the goal of journalism is understanding and not entertainment. One of the reasons why journalists covering conflicts often fall prey to a simplified and violence-oriented style of reporting is that too often journalism is seen and practiced through the lens of entertainment. Now, there's nothing wrong with entertainment. I do love the occasional night of binge-watching a great series or getting lost in a deeply immersive video game. However, the relationship between entertainment and journalism is one that is very difficult to balance. Entertainment very much serves the commercial interest of the media. It is easier to produce than high-quality reporting. It is a lot cheaper too. 2 reasons why the paradigm of entertainment has taken hold of journalism so effectively, often to the detriment of real quality in reporting. Where journalism is primarily seen as a product, a driver for business, its products are judged by what creates the biggest possible profit with the smallest necessary investment. A simple fact is that information gathering is more expensive than selling less informative reports via means of entertainment. Instead of investing in often tedious research and investigation and the endless verification of information, entertainment-led reporting utilizes the strategies of marketing and storytelling to make catchy reports, even though their content is not offering much else. There's even a word for it now. That's called infotainment. I give you an example. 2 media organizations produce a report on a bombing. One is driven by commercial interest. For this media organization, a sensationalist and gory report of the bomb site produced with agency visuals represents high value. Costs are minimal, since they buy the material from the agency. They don't need a reporter on the ground. They don't need an expert on the conflict to provide background. There's no expensive insurance. The readers buy the paper or watch the program because it is catchy. It satisfies their curiosity in a similar way to a war movie, with the additional thrill that we know what we see is actually real. Now we have a second media organization. This media organization is driven by its understanding of its role in society as a communication channel and an instrument of education and information. The team has a desire to inform its readers. This includes helping their readers understand why such bombing attacks happen. For this outlet, it is worth investing into an elaborate investigative report. Just reporting the gory scene isn't enough. It doesn't provide real answers. They will look into the context of the event, explore the origins of the perpetrators, look into the conditions that make extremist ideologies attractive for people who see little hope for their future. The journalist's aim is to enable their readers to decide where they stand with regards to the specific issue, and to enable them, if they want to act on it. The impact of each report on the reader is very, very different. Where journalists focus on a violent event with no deeper explanation, they leave their readers to draw their own conclusions based on biases and assumptions. Where pain, such as the pain caused by a bombing, seems senselessly inflicted, a harsh and equally violent response seems justified. There's an attacker who is young, male, and a member of an extremist group, so let's kill everybody who expresses extremist ideologies and the problem is solved. I'm sure you agree with me saying that solving conflicts is never that simple. Where journalists can create true understanding of the underlying root causes of violence, for example, that despair and hopelessness, marginalization and discrimination cause people to be receptive to extremism and manipulation, their reports make us realize that a harsh response will be less likely to lead to improvement. More likely, it will worsen the problem, an effect all of us who have worked in conflict have been able to observe. There are a lot of organizations and businesses out there that provide brilliant entertainment, and a lot of it can also be socially critical, relevant, and educational. Entertainment, however, is not the primary purpose of journalism. Our reasons for existence Our role in society, as we discussed before, is to inform and educate the reader, to empower people to make informed choices and participate in society. We as journalists empower our readers and audiences to participate in public discourse by increasing knowledge and providing a platform for discussion. Now, media organizations, of course, also need to make money to fund their work. That is no question. Journalists and editors also need to eat. They need to pay rent, they feed their children. Journalists need to get paid, and that money has to come from somewhere. Nevertheless, journalism is not just another business that can define its priorities based on return on investment. Doing so would not only lead to wrong conclusions about conflicts and misguided ideas about solutions. It takes away the one institution that is supposed to provide a true point of reference, the one source of information we can trust, and thereby it would undermine democracy as such. Now back to the beginning. What does all this have to do with the coronavirus outbreak and the observable change in the tone of reporting about this crisis? This pandemic has created a very unique situation. It has put all of us into a crisis that has no outside enemy. It poses a threat to everyone, and there are no outside observers left that could take the stance of an independent commentator. In this situation, no journalist feels inclined to look at the situation as a sports match. In this situation, readers, audiences, and journalists alike do not look at journalism as entertainment, but as a source of highly valued critical information. It is not an option to evade this responsibility. The pandemic has caused a paradigm shift that is actually leading us back to the true role of journalism in our society. With our focus back on truth-seeking, accurate and carefully presented information, journalists rediscover the tools of their profession. Many of them you can find in our conflict-sensitive journalism toolbox. As I've been saying for years, conflict-sensitive journalism is nothing else but high-quality reporting of conflict, crisis and war. And that holds true regardless whether that crisis has been man-made or has been brought to us by a virus. With this thought, I will end today's episode and leave you to your own thoughts for a while. Make the best of this challenging time, and let's make sure we don't miss the chance to learn from all of this. Once the situation comes down, I hope we will not just revert back to old habits, but hold on to this learning and to our newly rediscovered appreciation of non-sensational, high-quality journalism. Take care of yourselves, and I hope you'll join me again for another episode on conflict-sensitive journalism. As always, it's a wild world out there, now more than ever, so stay safe and stay sane.
So much for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you won't miss out on any of the future episodes. And I would really appreciate if you leave me a rating on iTunes, on Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you want to learn more about the Peacebuilding Practitioner, head over to my webpage. That's www.thepeacebuildingpractitioner.org, where you find plenty of articles from practitioners for practitioners. And if you want to dive even deeper into this field of work, join us for one of our online courses. If you want to learn more about that, just get in contact with me. You'll find the contact details in the show notes or on my webpage.